It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
It's that time for a cup of coffee with Wild Will and Uncle Chris right here from Slumberland at the lake. And Uncle Chris, it's going to be another good one.
Oh my gosh, we got some doozies this week. Big blow up in the commissioners meeting and stuff like that. So this ought to be interesting.
Yeah, so we're going to break that down. And really, I didn't find it as crazy about the childish antics we saw on display as some things that were revealed with some ties and loyalty to a former Camden County employee. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, you remember the Morgan County deputy that was involved in the crash back in December. Like he was off duty.
Like the son of the sheriff, right?
Correct. Yeah, wow. Morgan County Sheriff Norman Dills. His son, Deputy Justin Dills, was involved in that crash. Now, of course, he was not there when the police arrived. And since that time, this happened back in December of 22. The first we heard of it, was back in March. And since then, we've really heard nothing.
Yeah.
And so we're still searching for answers on that. We'll talk about the PHC baby bottle drive. Plus, listen, Memorial Day around the corner. You talk about sales. They got some crazy sales going on right here at Slumberland at the lake. And instead of telling you all about it, I'd much rather show you. Get ready for Slumberland Furniture's Memorial Day sales event, one of our biggest sales of the summer, with up to 50% off list prices in store and online. With sofas, recliners, couches, chairs, patio sets, bedding, and so much more, come take advantage of no interest for 36 months and free shipping to your doorstep. It's Slumberland at the lake, where we're bringing happy home. Yeah, make sure you stop by and see them. They also still got their Spruce Up for Spring sale with all kinds of deals and 0% interest-free financing, same as cash. So make sure you stop in and tell them that Wild Will and Uncle Chris sent you when you do, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And come by and see us.
Yeah, come by and see us. All right, so I'm sure you already caught wind of Dave Maupin's blog, Among the Dogwoods. Did you see what happened last Tuesday at the commission meeting in Camden County?
I did. I saw that over the weekend, and we had some family in town over the weekend, and I just kind of like left the group because I had to go and listen to that tape and see what happened, and that was interesting, very interesting.
So I'm going to do my best to try to break this down for everybody. So it was Tuesday, May 2nd at the Camden County Commission meeting. Things got, like you said, rather heated, and it was between our sheriff, Tony Helms, and Commissioner James Gohagen, the two that got into a real heated exchange. These were some of the pretty wild things from the meeting's audio recording.
All I asked was Jeffrey was 11 and 12. It's saying Ozark Amphitheater shall indemnify, Camden County shall indemnify. It felt like that was the same language. You're getting wound up on something totally.
Yeah, I am, but I'm going to bring that up later. I'm way pissed right now.
Oh, Tony's way pissed. Watch out.
James, you need to be very careful.
What are you going to do, Tony?
I'm going to
start arrest me?
Like
you're going to arrest me?
Man. Well, if I had a chance, I might, but I don't know.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. I don't talk to you, Tony.
Exactly.
I don't talk to you at all.
Exactly.
So what do I tell stuff that shouldn't be getting out?
Okay, well, that's good that you brought that up. If you're going to let this keep going, I'm going to bring it up.
We need to stop at this moment.
I'm fine.
We just need to stop at this moment. We need to get back to this contract and why we're here and move on to the business on the agenda.
I would like to say one last thing. Just like I told Nathan, I don't like you. James, you're a liar.
You are hang on now.
You're a total liar.
We're beyond the scope of what we're here for.
Well, it's in paper. It's in writing.
Men, please. We're beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. Let's keep this to the scope of what we're talking about with this agreement.
What? Is that a threat, Tony?
I can show, yes, that's a threat, James. Whoa. I can show you text where you text me that was so blatant lying that it was stupid. I can't believe you were dumb enough to send me that.
What text?
Wow.
Pretty wild, right?
Yeah. I mean, you usually don't see dirty laundry like that come out in public like that. But it was interesting to see it coming out because that means there's a lot more brewing underneath the surface than what we're seeing.
Correct. And I'm going to tell you guys what this all started from was questions in regards to a contract between the Ozarks Amphitheater and Camden County's Sheriff Office. Now, this would allow the amphitheater to hire uniformed Camden County deputies as security at Ozark Amp events. Sounds kind of simple, right? Presiding Commissioner Skelton was fine with it. Commissioner Don Williams was fine with it. And Commissioner James Gohagen was maybe okay with it, Chris, but he voiced concerns about the two involved parties, the amphitheater and Camden County, seemingly to indemnify one another. And he said it was section 11 and 12 of the contract. So good question. And he then stated he didn't think the county should be subsidizing their deputies out to any of our private businesses. And now that is what really set Sheriff Helms off. He was rather heated. You already heard part of the audio, and accused the commission with their newfound concerns over these contracts with private businesses to stem from their disliking of a former Camden County captain, Chris Twitchell. And he was one of the numerous Camden County deputies that manned Shady Gators last year. Again, here's what Sheriff Helms said to the commission about having concerns in their county business.
You know, it'd be better if you guys stayed within the bounds of commission and allowed the sheriff to run the sheriff department. We've got a lot more knowledge and experience and know how to do that than you do.
Interestingly enough for me to hear that, but this is where it gets really wild for me. So Sheriff Helms is the one who brings up Chris Twitchell. Right. This wasn't anybody from the outside that brings him up, and that's the former Camden County captain. As a matter of fact, he not only brought him up, but he had a handful of things to say regarding Chris Twitchell. Take a listen.
I'm telling you, this isn't like, geez, this is new. This has been going on. I've been here over 33 years and never been a single problem until you guys started making it a problem. I don't get why. This helps the county. This helps me. I got 4 people down at Shady Gators. You can call them the reason why some of you don't like the reserves, because you don't like the specific people that worked it last year. Don't say you don't.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Chris Twitchell and the Bakers. I've seen your post. I've seen Rennie's post on there about how they do things.
When did I ever say anything?
Whatever.
Well, if you want to get into it about Twitchell, we can get into it.
Go ahead.
What's he done?
That's my question to you. What has he done?
Why do you protect him?
Can somebody in here tell me how I protected Chris Twitchell?
You sure did, Tony.
James,
Sure did.
you're a liar.
Hang on now.
You're a total liar, Tony.
We're beyond the scope
Better
of
be
what we're
careful
here
now.
for.
Well, it's in paper.
Men, or
It's in writing.
men, please, we're beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. Let's keep this to the scope of what we're talking about with this agreement.
What? Is that a threat, Tony?
I can show, yes, that's a threat, James.
Whoa.
I can show you text where you text me that was so blatant lying that it was stupid. I can't believe you were dumb enough to send me that.
What text?
Chris, maybe you're wondering why that's so wild for me. Well, let's take a brief, maybe a Cliff Notes version, look into the former captain Chris Twitchell's body of work. We'll start with working under Sheriff Dwight Franklin. At the time, he was allegedly let go for complaints of sexual harassment from a Camden County informant. Again, allegedly, which we're going to soon find out seems potentially factual. Second, we know he worked in Eldon and Crocker police departments, and neither of those two departments are willing to comment on his departure. So you can say what you want about that. Now, he was brought back to Camden County under the newly elected Sheriff Tony Helms back in 2017, and not just brought back, he was given the title, the status of captain, third in command after that. Okay, so then we're going to fast forward. He joined the Buffalo Police Department in April 21. If you're wondering why did you leave Camden County, there was no reason given for leaving Camden County, but we'll quickly find out why. Let's look at the 5th bullet as we look at Chris Twitchell's body of work. Lawsuit from sexual harassment and discrimination involving Sheriff Helms, Camden County, and Chris Twitchell filed by former Deputy Bethany Bowen. The Lake Expo article published April 13th from 22 reads, and the suit filed by Bethany Bowen is crazy to me. She alleges Twitchell sexually harassed her on multiple occasions and gives specific details of those instances. The lawsuit points to an alleged history of sexual harassment and misbehavior by Twitchell. It claims that while he was a deputy during Sheriff Dwight Franklin's administration, remember that was the first bullet we talked about, Prior to Helms, he was under investigation for that alleged sexual relationship with an informant. At the time, according to lawsuit document, Twitchell was pulled into sheriff's office and told they had heard about the relationship and was then given the option to resign, or they said they're going to open an investigation, at which time he resigned. Which seems pretty crazy that you don't just investigate if something like that happens. You allow him to resign and go do it at another department. And we'll have more on that matter here in a minute. So he resigns, and the lawsuit says Bowen has information that the Missouri State Highway Patrol's Division of Drug and Crime Control, or a federal office already had an open investigation on Twitchell during that time. However, as you know, when Tony Helms defeated Dwight Franklin in 2016 election and took office in January of 2017, again, he rehired Twitchell and gave him the rank of captain. Gets even crazier, believe it or not, in a recorded conversation back from 21 between a local citizen Nathan Rennie and Sheriff Helms, the sheriff actually appears to acknowledge he was aware of these allegations made against Twitchell during his prior employment and with other law enforcement agencies. In that audio clip, which you can find in that article from April 13, 2022 from Lake Expo, that's where all of this section is coming directly from. Helms discussed some individuals who had contacted him for a reference on Twitchell as he applied for that police chief position in Buffalo. He said, I told them there was a risk here. I told them what it was over. And I said I cannot substantiate any of it. So as far as we're concerned, he's got a clear conscience. And if he wants to leave, he can leave. He then went on to say, Chris is a narcissist. He has to be in control, and we're better off with him gone. And that's all I've got to say. That was 2001 Sheriff Tony Helms. He can be heard telling Rennie as well, and this is where I really get scared, there had been a personnel file on Twitchell, but that when he went and looked through those files, which is presumably the day he took office, all the files on Chris Twitchell were missing. He said, I was here at 12:01 on New Year's Eve. The first thing I did was go through the personnel files, and all of those were gone. How convenient that all of those files would disappear. So I got a question, Sheriff Helms. Do you still want to say, as you said in this meeting Tuesday, how have you protected Chris Twitchell? Sheriff Helms? Oh, and how about after that? Of course, when the lawsuit was filed and that Lake Expo article was published, Chris, Twitchell was already the chief in Buffalo, Missouri. How do you think that went? Let's take a look. Put on administrative leave amid internal investigation as of January 23rd. Are you noticing a trend, or is it just me?
Seems to be a trend.
So, not really sure what it's over, but fast forward to April 28th, announces his resignation. And according to Ozarks First, the Buffalo Police Department came out with a quote that said, we are going to be much better off moving forward without Chris Twitchell, and will not comment on his situation, just that he was ineligible for rehire.
So nobody's commenting, right? I mean, everywhere he's been, everybody refuses to comment.
Well, not quite. We have a lot of audio recordings, Chris,
Okay.
That will come. We're just digging into this now, and he's already listed with the Camden County Sheriff's Office, so one could wonder just how long does that job last. So you might be wondering, what is all of this about? Well, why are you so heated over Sheriff Tony Helms' outburst at the commission meeting? Well, I would argue that the continual loyalty given and ties shown to Chris Twitchell from Sheriff Tony Helms could actually be the darkest cloud hanging over Sheriff Tony Helms. It could actually be the blackest eye that'll mark his proverbial legacy. I've even heard rumor, Chris, that Camden County Sheriff's Office is darn close to uninsurable under Tony Helms. And we actually have audio recordings of former presiding commissioner Greg Hasty and Commissioner Don Williams discussing that very issue. They mentioned that they're going to have to concoct a story for the stand because they didn't fire, Sheriff Helms did not fire Chris Twitchell with all of these reports, and this was before the lawsuit was filed. And so really, the lawsuit was just icing on the cake that there was merit here. Now remember, Sheriff Helms is the one who brought Chris Twitchell up, accusing the commission of not liking Chris Twitchell. You heard him say it. Let's hear it again.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Chris Twitchell and the Bakers. I've seen your post. I've seen Rennie's post on there about how they do things.
When did I ever say anything?
Whatever.
Well, if you want to get into it about Twitchell, we can get into it.
Go ahead.
Well, to be perfectly honest, Sheriff Helms, now finding out a few of the things that we found out, seeing the red flags, seeing the track record, Why would anyone in Camden County like Chris Twitchell? Has he not put a dark enough cloud on our county? Has he not put enough dark enough cloud on your legacy, Sheriff Helms? And has he not cost the taxpayers of Camden County and your constituents enough money? Apparently not, because let's look back at March 31st. Sheriff Helms presents Chris Twitchell with his retirement credentials. You see these 4 photos. Those are right from Chris Twitchell's Facebook page. Then on April 29th, how about this flattering photo from Chris Twitchell's Facebook page? Hanging out with his good old buddy. Now, why, Sheriff Helms, did you really have to go and open this can of worms by bringing up Chris Twitchell? James Gohagen didn't bring him up. Nathan Rennie didn't bring him up. I didn't bring him up as much as all of us probably wanted to bring him up. We didn't. You brought him up. You opened this can of worms, and the truth is, you know who this man really is. You've been recorded saying it. The whole county knows it. You've admitted the county's better off without him. Everybody knows it, from former prosecutor Caleb Cunningham. We'll play the audio in an upcoming issue. Former presiding commissioner Greg Hasty. We'll play the audio in an upcoming episode. And your entire commission knows it. The community knows it, and more than anyone, you and Chris Twitchell know it. So now, because you did indeed open this can of worms with Chris Twitchell, I'm confident those worms are about to be crawling out all over the place and to the tune of your demise. And guess what? You won't be able to blame Nathan Rennie. You won't be able to blame James Gohagen. You won't be able to blame me. You'll be able to blame the track record of Chris Twitchell's inappropriate and unprofessional behavior in Camden County and your lack of diligence in passing the trash or getting rid of the trash. As a matter of fact, you're real diligent in passing the trash. What are we left with at the end of this, Chris? That's what I want to know. We're left with lawsuits that are going to be paid by you, the Camden County taxpayer. A community that doesn't and should not trust their sheriff's office. A dangerous state for the county, potentially not being insurable. And now the latest display of this childish behavior by Sheriff Helms on full display for all to see. Now let's not forget the threat that he made in the meeting, and I'm sure you guys heard he just had to fit in there, and I want to say, I don't like you. Like we're at recess in 5th grade playing dodgeball with the big bad bully. Not that we're in a commission meeting that is documented, recorded, and all of your constituents are able to see and hear. Interesting to me. And that move could have easily called for him to be removed from that meeting. The commission had every power, Chris, at that point in time to remove him. So what's the moral of the story here? I think it's time to take a closer look at Camden County Sheriff's Office under the leadership of Tony Helms. I really want to applaud Dave Maupin, who authors the Among the Dogwoods blog. He does a really incredible job, Chris, because he offers a non-biased and educated and fair recap from all Camden County Commission's meetings. And it was his work that gave us all this information, provided this audio recording, the transcript. He put a lot of work into it, and you can find that latest blog where all this information came from at amongthedogwoods.blog. Phenomenal work, Dave, and I encourage all of you guys. Don't take my word from it. Don't just take these few audio clips that we've picked to put in here. Listen to the entire 7-minute plus audio recording because it'll tell you everything you need to know. I'm going to end today on this story by reading the way Dave signed off on his blog. I thought it was powerful. I feel like there should be a certain expectation for how elected officials and citizens alike should conduct themselves at these meetings. The sheriff, by his own admission, was upset about something other than this particular agenda item. While it makes for interesting writing, it makes for interesting sound bites for us, outbursts like these probably don't contribute to the best governance for the constituents. How can the deputies eject a citizen from a meeting for being disruptive, and then you have your highest ranking officer, your sheriff, acting the same way without consequence? As far as the commission's involvement with the amphitheater contract, Dave notes it's important that the executive body, which is the commission of the county, be aware of how Camden County deputies work for private companies and when. Dave said he was surprised to hear that the sheriff didn't care where his deputies work off duty when they aren't in uniform. But by his own admission at the meeting, they should still be obligated by the responsibilities as peace officers, even in plainclothes security jobs, should be covered by the county's insurance if they act to prevent or stop crime. You take that, you swear that when you join the force. And he says, thus, it's in the county's interest to know what off-duty jobs deputies might be working to mitigate the risk. And I agree with all that. Because really the story of the county allowing for businesses, Shady Gators, to pay their deputies directly when they're off duty, in uniform, in police car, wearing a badge, the county's going to take all the liability in situations like that, and we've seen that. So that's a whole nother story, and that's where this started, but this isn't where it ended for Sheriff Tony Helms.
Yeah.
He had a bone to pick, and he wanted to say his piece. And unfortunately, he had to bring up Chris Twitchell. Well, I want to say, man, this is going to conclude this story and the issues taking place within the Camden County Sheriff's Office. Stay tuned, Chris, because I think it's time that we take a deeper dive into why our sheriff just can't let go of his love and loyalty for Chris Twitchell. It blows my mind. If I were a betting man, I'd say the most strategic thing you could do in a political position, distance yourself as far as possible, correct?
You would think.
Or post pictures, smoke cigars, give him awards, defend him when he wasn't even brought up in a meeting. That's the strategy your sheriff goes with as far as trying to keep his image in good graces. We'll let you guys be the judge. But boy, I'm telling you what, buckle up because we've got some more stories to do.
Wow, that was quite the expose there. That's pretty amazing. So there's a whole lot of things on the table here, right? Mm-hmm. that go beyond whether or not Sheriff Helms likes Jim Gohagen or not, which apparently he doesn't because he said he didn't. What's going on with Captain Twitchell? Above and beyond all that, what started out this whole thing was talking about safety and security of local Camden County residents and people who are coming into the lake. How do we keep them safe? At the amphitheater, at places like Shady Gators, should the sheriff's department be allowed sheriffs off duty to go and do that? How do we do that? And I think that's what the commission was looking at. How do we best do this, keep people safe, allow the sheriff's department to do that? But they didn't even get to that because of all the garbage that started to come up. And yeah, I think this is just like the tip of the iceberg. In the last couple of elections, we've seen a whole lot of we need change, we need to clean things up. And I think that's the way the voters voted. We do need change, we do need to clean things up. I think this is a part of the process of that. But that process is like making hot dogs and sausage. It is not pretty and you don't want to see it, right?
Correct.
But you want to get it cleaned up. So hopefully that is happening here.
Yeah, and honestly, what you referred to as what the commission was interested in and what they brought up. This is an existing contract that's been going on. Tony alludes to it. Sheriff Helms alludes to it in the recording. Says, I've been here 33 years. This has never been a problem. And even goes on to say, we have a lot of these contracts that you guys don't even know about. And Don Williams says, well, wait. Well, there's a lot that you don't even know about. Well, why wouldn't we know about them?
Yeah.
Well, because it's none of your business.
Yeah.
And presiding Commissioner Skelton says, anything that happens in county that our insurance may be responsible for, we should be involved in, and I would agree with that. And so it was an existing contract they're taking a closer look at, but it's worth noting that Ike Skelton, our presiding commissioner, said, I consider this different from the Shady Gators contract, meaning he may not be in favor of the Shady Gators contract because we know a couple years ago, maybe it was last year or the year before, you had that shooting out there. Guess what county was liable for that?
Camden County, of course.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the deal is, there's a lot of things that our new leadership is coming in and is looking into and they're raising concerns. And when you have the good old boy system, you have someone that's been there for 33 years. It's been done like this for 33 years. Don't come in and, what if it's wrong, Tony?
Yeah.
Why would we not change it if it's wrong?
Right, if it can be done better. And as I think we all know, things usually do not evolve in a better way. They devolve in a worse way. So maybe 30 years ago, this was a great system, but maybe it's devolved into something that can be improved a lot. So let's look at it. Let's see if it can be, and I would guess it's very different in Ozark amphitheaters and a place like Shady Gators. It's a whole different scenario there that you got to look at and figure out the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and I think that our commission is making an effort to do that, to be diligent. And it's worth noting, I reached out yesterday. Now, it was holiday. It was Monday. It was Harry S. Truman's birthday. So
Happy birthday, Harry.
Yeah, happy birthday, Harry. I mean, how many holidays do we need in the state of Missouri? So no one was reachable, but I did leave a voicemail and gave Sheriff Helms an opportunity to get ahead of this and said, this looks terrible. Do you have anything to say? And so I'm going to say again, without hearing back from Sheriff Helms, Sheriff Helms, I welcome you to come on next week's show and field some of this. Talk to me about some of this with our community watching. The same goes for you, Chris Twitchell. If you think I'm wrong, if I'm spewing in facts or untruths, go ahead and come on and tell us what you've done for the county and how these things are untrue. And I would love the opportunity to provide you the platform with our community watching. I'm not above being wrong, but I did listen to the audio recording, and I have looked at a lot of court proceedings and the lawsuit, of course, and so that's what we came to. I'm interested to see where this goes. Now, we already are running out of time this week, but important stuff, and I want you guys to understand that this is not just a story we're going to do because we want views, but this is important. If you have your highest ranking law enforcement officer who's making $110,000 a year, who is unwilling to relook at the way things have been done for 33 years because they might be able to be done better, more diligently, more cost effective, and better for the constituents, that might be an option. That doesn't look like that's the case. And the other huge issue, Chris, that is really where my focus goes, is the ties and the loyalty to this Chris Twitchell. He says in the audio, he goes, what did Chris Twitchell ever do to anyone in this room? He's cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's put a black eye. I mean, we could go on and on like we have. And so to answer your question, Tony, I think we've answered it pretty well. That's what Chris Twitchell has done for Camden County.
We'll see where this goes. It's going to be interesting. This is not the end of it, one way or the other. But again, in the last couple of elections, I think the voters have voted for a change, for a look at all this stuff to try and clean it up or keep it the way it is if it's going great, all that stuff. But let's look at it. Let's open it up. Let's bring it to the surface and try to, get this all out in the open.
And one more thing, we've covered it the last few weeks. I'm still waiting. Speaking of Camden County, I'm still waiting for potential pushback or consequences from the press conference saying to the ATF, because we've still yet to hear anything. And from my understanding, the way the ATF works, they're very quiet. They'll play the waiting game. They're in no hurry. And so I am actually a little bit fearful of what that move by our county, by our sheriff, could mean for us as we move forward as a county and our ability to have FFL license within the county.
It is scary that we're afraid of the federal government and their power and what they can do. When a county like Camden County tries to step up for the citizens and do what seems like the right thing, that you're still afraid of retribution, which we are. That's just where things have gotten in this country, which is not good in that too. Hopefully we can turn that around and clean that all up and all that. But boy, that's another big can of worms right there.
Well, there's a lot going on, and with the way everything's moving forward, I mean, you look at nationally, you look at locally, and I mean, we are right on the verge of a civil war, and I don't want to expedite that process. I don't want to speed that up. Right. I don't want to give these weaponized government agencies and municipalities any more ammo to come after little bitty Camden County.
See, and I think we're already in a civil war. It just hasn't become kinetic yet. The bullets aren't flying, stuff like that. But it is a war of words, of ideals, of belief, the media, who controls the narrative. The war has already begun. Hopefully it can be stopped at this stage and doesn't get kinetic where people are dying, but we're on that verge.
Yeah,
it's pretty scary.
Just thankful that I know Jesus and
Amen.
I know where I'm going, and so I know what the end game is, and this is all just temporary. But we are supposed to be diligent. We are supposed to be good stewards while we're here, and that's what we're trying to do. That's going to do it for this week's Cup
Out of time already.
Coffee. Believe it or not, we rushed through this week's show. Important stuff. We thank you guys for watching. And listen, if you guys have any comments, any questions, or you want to come on and, debate with us and tell us why we're wrong, we are open to that. Just shoot us an email. We'd be happy to talk with you. Thanks for watching this week's Cup of Coffee.
If it's happening at the lake, it's happening on Lake TV. From the polar plunge to festivals, parades, aquapalooza, and boat shows, Lake TV has it all. Even the granddaddy of them all, the shootouts. If you're looking for places to party, things to do, or even a new home to move into, you've gotta love Lake TV.